The fluorescent lights in the hospital corridor hummed quietly as the young doctor pushed open the door to room 407. It was well past midnight, and the world outside was silent, but in here, the steady beep of the heart monitor was the only sign of life. On the bed lay a woman who, to anyone else, might have seemed like a stranger, but to him, she was more than just another patient. Her name had once been on the covers of business magazines, known for her wealth and influence, but now she lay still, her hair spread across the pillow, her skin pale against the white sheets. She had been in a coma for months, visited by very few, as though the world had already moved on. He set down the fresh bandages and gloves, his movements careful, almost reverent. He spoke to her as if she could hear, his voice low, steady. "It's just me again," he said softly, pulling a stool closer. "Thought I'd tell you about the little boy who took his first steps in the ward today." He smiled like the sun came up just for him. His hands worked gently as he unwrapped the old dressing, mindful of every motion. He wasn't in a hurry, he never was with her. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic, yet there was something almost sacred in the quiet. He didn't know if his words made any difference, but still, night after night, he came, and he spoke, and he hoped. As he worked, his mind drifted back to a memory that had shaped his entire life. Years ago, when he was just a teenager, his little sister had fallen gravely ill. Their family had no means to afford the treatment she desperately needed. He remembered the helplessness, the way his mother cried quietly at night, thinking no one could hear. Then, as if from nowhere, a new clinic had opened in their neighborhood, free for all children. It was there that his sister received the care that saved her life. At the time, they never knew who was behind it. The staff only said it was funded by a kind donor who wished to remain anonymous. It wasn't until he began his residency that he discovered the truth. While researching a patient's history, he came across the same woman's name, the one now lying unconscious before him. She had funded dozens of such clinics across the country, giving millions without ever asking for her name to be attached to the generosity. For most people, she was just a headline about business empires and wealth, but to him, she was the reason his sister could laugh, play, and dream today. That knowledge made every visit to her room feel personal. He wasn't just tending to a patient, he was standing before the very person who had unknowingly changed the course of his life. And though she couldn't see or hear him, he felt an unspoken connection, a silent gratitude that kept drawing him back night after night. Tonight, as he finished cleaning the wound, he found himself lingering. The hospital was quiet, the kind of stillness that made even the ticking clock sound loud. He looked at her face, peaceful yet fragile, and something in his chest ached. Normally, he would simply replace the bandage and leave, but tonight he stayed. He reached for the blanket at the foot of her bed and gently pulled it up to her shoulders, tucking it around her like he might for a child. Her hand lay cold on the sheet, and without thinking, he took it in his own. "You're not alone," he whispered, his voice barely above the hum of the machines. "We're waiting for you. I'm waiting for you." His thumb brushed over her knuckles in slow circles, as if trying to warm her back to life. He thought about how lonely this room must feel, day after day, night after night, with no conversation, no laughter, just the endless monotony of beeping monitors. He imagined what it would be like if she could hear him, if somewhere deep inside her mind his words could find a way through. Perhaps she would know that someone cared. Perhaps she would understand how much she had already given to the world without ever asking for thanks. For a moment, he simply sat there, holding her hand, speaking quietly about the lives she had touched. It wasn't part of his medical duty, but it felt like something far more important that he secured the last piece of tape over the fresh bandage, his hands moving with practiced precision. As he set the supplies aside, something caught his attention, a faint twitch beneath his fingertips. Her hand shifted ever so slightly. He froze, his breath caught in his throat. Reflex, he told himself. It happened sometimes. Still, he didn't let go. Then it happened again, this time stronger. His gaze darted to her face just in time to see her eyelids flutter. The room, once heavy with stillness, suddenly felt charged, alive. "Miss Harper," he whispered, his voice trembling. Her lashes lifted, revealing eyes clouded with confusion, yet undeniably aware. She blinked slowly, her gaze struggling to focus, and for a heartbeat, they simply stared at each other, doctor and patient, two lives that had been connected long before this moment. Her lips moved, dry and weak, and he leaned in, straining to hear. The sound was barely audible, but the words struck him like lightning. She had spoken his sister's name. Not his name, not a question, his sister's name, spoken with the kind of certainty that came from memory, not chance. His heart pounded as emotion surged through him. How could she remember? How could she know? 1,000 questions crowded his mind, but all he could feel was the overwhelming realization that she was awake. She was here. And somehow, against every medical odd, she had come back in this exact moment. While he was holding her hand, tears blurred his vision as he tightened his grip on her hand, afraid that if he let go, she might slip away again. Nurses rushed in, voices quick and urgent, checking her vitals, shining lights into her eyes, but she didn't look away from him. Even amid the flurry of movement, her gaze stayed locked on his, as if searching for something familiar in the chaos. He swallowed hard, the memory of his sister's laughter flooding his mind, the image of her running through their small yard years ago, healthy, alive, because of the woman lying before him. In the days that followed, she slowly regained her strength. Speech returned in fragments, movements in careful steps. When she was finally able to speak for more than a few words, she told him she remembered visiting the clinic years ago, seeing his sister's bright smile, though she had never known the little girl's name until he had spoken of her in the quiet of her hospital room. She said it was his voice, steady, patient, filled with warmth, that had pulled her back from the emptiness. One morning, weeks later, she stood at a podium, pale but radiant, announcing plans to fund even more free clinics, because kindness should multiply. He stood in the crowd, a quiet smile on his face, knowing that sometimes the smallest gestures, holding a hand, speaking softly, staying when you could leave, can be the very thing that wakes someone, not just into life, but into hope again.